You know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
100% ready to go. It's been a long time coming, and I just can't wait to be out there.
That's why we play football in the SEC, trying to go get it done.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies. Quote at halftime, OB, you and I were talking, right? David Nuño, a guy that I really like, makes the comment, and you agreed with me, I believe. This lead feels insurmountable because the way the offense is moving the ball. Not that a 10-point lead should feel insurmountable. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, in fact, it seemed like that LSU had a bigger lead than they did.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were even in more control.
And we both said, both of us, and I think we said it earlier than halftime. In fact, I think it was maybe beginning of the second quarter, I'd make the move to Marcel Reed.
It was discussed
up
in the press box. So obviously it was discussed on the sidelines as well.
Yeah. And it was not only the needed move, it was the right move. And credit to Coach Elko for making the move, because it's easier to, when we're at home or we're at the press box, it's easy to, I'll just do this. Hey, it's not a Madden football game. It's real life. Yeah,
we don't have to look at the eyes of somebody that's, worked hard for you and done everything and say, hey, you know what, tonight's not your night. And so we're going to make a change. And but that's why you get paid what he does. And that's why he's in charge. That's why he's proven himself every week to be an absolute great coach.
It is TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. He's Olin Buchanan. I already mentioned I'm David Nuño. Obi, this game this weekend, it was like a snowball. And it started going the other direction, right? The snowball started going in another area. And then it hit a rock.
Okay.
And then it started going down the hill, right? The other way, right?
Okay.
And it just kept it didn't stop. B.J. Mays, pick. Crowd goes crazy. Marcel Reed comes in. First play, zone Reed touchdown.
Yeah.
Okay. Punt. Marcel Reed touchdown. Boom. B.J. Mays, pick. Touchdown. You couldn't stop it. And then I remember saying to you, if they score this touchdown, this game is over. And they did. And I think that gave them a 28-17 lead. Mm-hmm. And that's when LSU came back and scored.
I said, wait a minute.
Slow down, David.
Slow down.
But you know what the beauty was? You remember what the very next play was?
The very next play?
Well, the very next offensive play after LSU
scored the touchdown.
Yeah, that was Noah Thomas.
Noah Thomas, over the top.
What a freaking answer!
Man, what a beautiful throw.
Yeah.
I mean, found the guy, saw the guy open, made just a beautiful, deep rainbow throw. I bet a guy like Jackson over there, quarterback, can really appreciate that one.
Well, first off, let's talk about the moment. The storybook performance from Marcel Reed, right? If you were to make a movie, not that beating LSU mid-season is movie performance, right? We'll see where it leads to, right? But if you were to write a movie all right, let's do this. This team is losing, and they can't get over the top, and they have a chance, and this and that. Bring in the kid. Bring in the kid. They brought in the freshman.
Yeah, it was remarkable, and sometimes just changing a quarterback will make a difference in you get something different and the team just responds.
Yep.
But it wasn't just a change of quarterbacks. It was a change of quarterback and the quarterback coming in and just taking over. I mean, he was so brilliant. And then I know you were brought it up. You were right. I hadn't even thought about it. But when LSU struggled against South Carolina, it was because the South Carolina quarterback, Sellers, was running all over them.
Right.
And why wouldn't A&M's quarterback have success running the football? Because then you give a shaky LSU run defense 2 running threats that they have to account for. And they did a decent job accounting for 1. But then when you have 2 on the field at the same time, they didn't know what to do.
I know there's some analysts out there that are in Baton Rouge that paid a lot of respect for the physicality that A&M played with, and they do deserve that, I should say. There's some that think LSU gave this game away.
Some on the same show.
On the same show. And my response to that is, hey, we can all have our own opinion and see things the way we want to see it. But when you outrush, what was it? I don't have the stats in front of me. 242
it was 242 to 24. They were 10 times more productive. A&M was 10 times more productive than literally than LSU.
You win the turnover battle.
Yeah.
Okay. You could say, well, A&M LSU gave them the turnovers. Here's why. Because I thought for the first 30 minutes of that game, I thought Nuss was the best quarterback in the SEC that I had seen. Okay. Because I think he throws a beautiful ball when there's no pressure. And there wasn't a lot of pressure in the first half.
There wasn't.
Second half, before his first interception, I don't know if you remember, we were talking, I go, he doesn't look the same right now. There's something off about Nuss right now. And then the interception started happening. It was in his head. He heard those footsteps. He felt those footsteps. He got hit a few times.
Well, it's funny because I think his first, the pressure definitely makes a difference. And you can say that about almost everybody, but it really does on him. But that first interception, basically, he did the same thing he did in the first half when he was under pressure, rolled to the right and threw it downfield and got it to Lacey. You'll remember about it. It was on 3rd and 15.
Yep.
And he threw it for about 20 yards. Well, he was doing the same thing. It's just this time, B.J. Mays came over and got the interception, returned it inside the 10.
Yeah. And
break on the ball, DBs.
Break on the ball. But the Kyle Field effect. You want to talk about, hey, big-time teams can play in big-time stadiums. That's absolutely the truth. The one thing you can't account for in any big-time stadium, like Kyle Field, is when momentum shifts and the stadium feels it, right? Because I believe the interception got them going, for sure, the B.J. Mays first interception. Marcel Reed stepping on the field got them going. The touchdown made the place blow up. And then DJ Mike, props for playing the music like over and over, the Mamba song. It felt like an experience.
Well, it was definitely an avalanche in the second half. And I said the difference was as black and white, like the A&M uniforms and the LSU uniforms. It was that dramatic of a difference.
It was.
And it was glorious.
I'm going to give Bronny some props. I don't have the tweet in front of me, but it was something to the effect of Marcel Reed completed less passes to A&M wide receivers than Nuss did to A&M DBs. He phrased it a little bit more eloquently than that, but that was the gist of it, because that defense, Marcel didn't need to throw. When A&M is really good is when they don't really need to throw in the second half of games overall.
Well, and it's true that Nussmeier, struggled mightily in the second half. But, I'm kind of the mind that the interceptions were all great plays by A&M.
Yep.
Even because, again, did he make a questionable throw at times? Yeah, but those questionable throws in the first half were resulting in big gains. So he's just doing what he's doing. And I see that Mays makes the first one that sets up the second one. Now, I thought that was maybe his most questionable throw, but it was really the throw, I think, made sense, except that Mays came off the guy that he was supposed to be covering,
right.
or the way the defense was designed in coverage, and that confused him. The original read, I think, was okay. Yeah, I got this guy on the sideline. He should be open, and Mays is coming off of his guy, and because the way, again, I don't know if he made that Mays made that decision on his own, or if that's just the way that coverage was designed. But Nussmeier thinks that Mays is staying with the inside receiver,
sure,
and he comes off of it, makes a great dive pick. If he'd just been able to.
It's Mo Bamba, not Mamba.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we have some homeless guy who just yelled at us. Sorry.
And then, the last one I just thought was Torian York reading a screen.
Yeah. By the way, Kate, those gnats might be a little hot. I'm not sure. It sounds good, but it might be a little hot for TV. But what a beautiful play there. Let's also mention that we said the better quarterback was going to win this game, right?
Okay.
I believe we all felt that on this show, like Billy, the McKinneys, you, myself, everybody involved with the show. I think whoever wins the quarterback battle would win this game. We thought it would be Connor versus Nuss. It wasn't Connor.
Mm-mm.
And I have defended Connor. I still like Connor, but he hasn't been right this season for the most part. For the most part, he has not been right, and Marcel Reed has been right. The one game that I felt like he was not right was the Arkansas game until he was right. Right? And what I mean by that is like they had a hard time with getting any offensive going against Arkansas for about 3 quarters. And then, if you remember, he was backed up where he was really good, I think on the 2-yard line. He kind of rolled out, dumped it off to Noah Thomas, and then they started going, and that's where the Le'Veon avalanche, to borrow a term, came back.
I think we were correct, though. I think the best quarterback play won.
Yeah.
And that was Marcel Reed.
Yeah.
Because, and I've said this till I blew him in the face, the best quarterback doesn't necessarily mean who's the best passer. It means who moves your offense the best, who avoids turnovers, and quite frankly, Marcel was a wizard on the zone read.
I am curious why Connor isn't, because I don't think this is who he was. So a lot of people, I've seen that written before, like, guys, we just didn't know this is who he's. No, he's looked a lot more comfortable in the pocket before with a worse offensive line. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's as good. Everybody can come up with a theory, and this, I'm not saying this is the case. Here's a theory I've heard. Maybe it's just the offense that he's in, Colin Klein's offense, for whatever reason, just he's not as comfortable in it as the previous one.
Well, one thing is you can't deny that Marcel is thriving in it, and Marcel has thrived. Did he not lose a high school game? Is that what the stat was? Or maybe one high school game in his career? Something I heard that somewhere. The dude's great. He's a winner, and the players like him, love him. They love Connor too. Well, this is not a shot at Connor. I'm just saying, like, it seems to be working.
He was great the other night.
Yeah, he was.
And there's been other games where he was very impressive. Florida comes to mind, and then others where he was good enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to borrow the Bill Parcells line about Tony Romo. Let's not put him in Canton just yet. Let's not.
No, but the dude's undefeated in the SEC.
He is.
The dude's undefeated as a starter because the Oklahoma State game he did not start.
Right.
How do you? I don't.
There's
just win, baby.
There's so much potential with him.
Yes.
And I think he's earned the starting job for South Carolina and probably for the rest of the season. But only Mike Elko has a vote on that.
But you know what? Interesting. And I know you shouldn't do this and you can't do this. But I kind of like the idea. I'm not saying of 2 quarterbacks. Hear me out.
I know where you're going.
Like but if you need something different in that particular matchup, you go with something different. And if that particular day Connor can throw, and you won't know until you're in the game. So I think like this is what I think. Whatever Coach Elko thinks, I give the thumbs up because he's calling the right plays. He's making all the right choices.
He's Tom Cruise. He's making all the right moves. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, of course I do.
And he's doing all the right moves.
James T. Nelson.
Whether it be
Craig T. Nelson, sorry.
Yeah, correct. Whether I'm going to start Connor against Missouri, or whether I'm going to make a change here, or what he's made, whether I'm going to go just to the run or whatever. With the adjustments, it's just been so refreshing to watch. Just good coaching moves.
Yeah, and guys, be careful when you tweet. Okay, I purposely do not tweet a lot or much during games because the way we feel in the moment can change, and like the way the Twitter algorithm works, it'll pop up like Nuss is the best quarterback in the SEC, and it'll pop up after his second interception. It's funny like how that works, or people will see it the next morning. Update, I think it was SEC Mike, who I give a hard time to sometimes. he put Brian Kelly is your SEC Coach of the Year. How can he not be? And of course, I gave him an update.
Who is the best quarterback in the SEC, and who is the SEC Coach of the Year going into November? We're 2/3. That's almost sad to say. We're 2/3 through the season.
It's got to be Clark Lee or Mike Elko, and right now I give the advantage to Mike Elko as Coach of the Year. Quarterback?
Who's the best quarterback?
Well, no say that right there. I don't know, bro. I'm trying to think. Like,
I think after that, after 3 interceptions,
Nuss has eliminated himself from the list, right?
He's definitely fallen down. If I had to vote today, I'd put Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
Even though he threw, I think a couple of interceptions.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I mean, limited sample size, number 10. Limited, I know. Like you got to, but
look, like I've said, a great quarterback doesn't necessarily mean putting up great passing numbers. It means, do you move your offense? And boy, did they move that offense.
Here's the easiest way to answer the question. Which quarterback in the SEC is undefeated?
Well, that could be Connor Wigman. That could be.
Oh, yeah, true.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Undefeated in conference play. I know that's what you meant.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, if you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us up. We'll pick it up on the Boss Firearms Hotline, 979-693-1150. You can also text us on the Little Sluggers text line. Little Sluggers is age-appropriate baseball fundamental classes in Aggieland, Houston, Austin, and Brenham for kids 2 to 8. Sign up for a free trial at kodosports.com. That is kodosports.com. By the way, we're at the Holistic Planning Cool Zone.
Cool Zone.
Those are the guys that can help you invest in pro sports. You don't have to be like, Jerry Jones to own a team, right? Yeah. You can be an Olin Buchanan. Reach out to them at investinprosports.com. We go behind the glass. We say hi to Cade. Oh, no, Nick's in there. I saw the old switcheroo. Cade was there for a minute. Nick is back in there. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, y'all. Sorry, I had to get Billy set up. He's about to join SEC this morning. So
great.
Maybe dual screen it,
Yeah,
just,
thanks.
2 things. But would y'all call Kyle Field a cool zone?
Would you call Kyle Field a cool zone, OB?
It was pretty hot the other night. But
it was really hot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool stadium, and I think the fans were amazing. By the way, fans, give yourself a pat on the back because you closed the deal on 3 2026 recruits. Commitment.
What a week.
Closed the deal on
OB, you stole the words right out of my mouth. That's where I was going to go with it. 3 commits come yesterday. The first being Jordan Carter out of Douglasville, Georgia. 2 commits actually from the same high school. Aaron Gregory is the other one, wide receiver. And all the way out in California, Samu Moala, I believe is how you pronounce that. 3 4-stars, and already a pretty solid 2026 recruiting class. 7 commits, and yeah, again, that's just the Kyle Field effect right there.
Yeah, there was a lot of recruits there, man. A lot. It was cool to be there.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to play at Texas A&M when you see that kind of coaching, that kind of excitement, and play in that kind of atmosphere?
By the way, I did notice a difference in the town before the game. I have not seen traffic like that pre-game in my time in College Station the last 3 years at least, right? I'm serious. Like, to me, it was like, whoa. And then walking to the stadium early, because we got there early for our pre-game show. If you didn't check out the TexAgs tailgate with Richard Zane, you should check it out. While we were on the air, the little scuffle broke out on the side of the end zone between LSU players and A&M. It was cool to be there as it was happening. But walking to the stadium, it was like there was just a festival vibe to it, OB.
Yeah. Win this week, and even New Mexico State's going to have a crazy, even that game will have a crazy environment. I knew it was a big game because I had a different traffic experience. I had no traffic because
everybody was at the game already.
Right. I was doing the pregame show at Kearney's, and so it's over with. I have 1 hour to get to the stadium. I got from Kearney's, usually have to go up, I guess it's University, and then over on Texas Avenue, and then down on George Bush Drive. Took me less than 10 minutes. Oh, because everybody was already at the game and
they were there
partying. It was great.
All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Jackson Oxney was on the sidelines hanging out with former players. He's a former player himself. Jackson, how was it?
It was a lot of fun. It was like an environment I've never been in before. I mean, I can compare it to the 2021 Alabama game when I was on the team, suited up on the sideline. and it was pretty close to that environment. I would say the Alabama win might have edged it out a little bit, but it was definitely second for sure.
Maybe because it was so unexpected, right?
Yeah.
After losing 2 straight games and losing to Mississippi State and losing to Arkansas, maybe because of that. But this one, way bigger ramifications. At that time, we thought maybe that could send A&M down a different path, and it started to.
It almost did.
It almost did. This one, right now, is setting them down a different path. They control their destiny.
They absolutely do. You know, look, no SEC road game or SEC game by that matter, but no SEC road game is easy. But you're in a position now where, hey, you win at South Carolina, then you get to sit back and watch 2 weeks of carnage, basically, because you got the open date and then you get
New
Mexico State. I think if you win against South Carolina this week, and I'm very confident about going on the road to Auburn, but I think you're in the playoff, unless you just unless you step on a rake and it hits you in the forehead.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. What else do you have for us, Jackson?
I think you guys earlier might have been unsure of the rushing stats for A&M and LSU. So A&M had 245 yards on the ground.
245.
And LSU had 35. And 49 rushing attempts by A&M is the most rushing attempts since the Florida game. Before that, 2022 LSU.
Okay.
So it's the most rushing attempts that they've had all season.
I think the disparity between 24 and 35 goes down to this, which it depends on how they're putting in the 11-yard loss on the field goal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think, and who knows, but I think that was influenced by the crowd noise because you have a holder that's not quite used to it like a quarterback would, and he's trying to get, make sure the guy's ready, and then you have a long snapper that's not out there all the time and thinks he hears something, 11-yard loss.
Want to make some money?
Yeah, let's make some money.
I don't remember how I did this weekend. I know that I was off on Connor. I think his number was like 255.5, and I went more than, or maybe it was 205.5. And I was wrong. Okay. I was fairly sure I was right on Le'Veon Moss.
Yeah, it was like 69 or 70. And
I think he had 82 yards rushing, but his number was 84.5.
Oh, okay.
And I think he finished with how many? 82? Does that sound right, Jackson?
83.
83. So barely made that one. So but I made money. That's what matters at the end of the day. PrizePicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs. And you can play daily fantasy sports. It's the coolest way to watch games because, I know if you watch this show, you listen to this show, you watch SEC football, you're into it. You're all about A&M. But imagine watching these games and having a little bit more to root for, right? I want this guy to get this yard. I want him not to get this yard. It makes it exciting. It's more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll. And you get $50 guaranteed once you play in $5 lineups by going to PrizePicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs. It's PrizePicks.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
Welcome back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It's the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. I want to read you this text that came on my little slugger's text line. It's a buddy of mine who is a college football referee in a different conference, okay?
All right.
And he said, I had asked him about the Walker call, the targeting call. And he says, both the blindside block and the targeting are the correct calls, unfortunately. From an official's perspective, all the elements are there for both fouls. I'd like to figure out why, because to me, like when I watch it in real time, he's looking right at him. So I'll follow up with him, but that was something he had sent me.
No, I get it. I just don't like the rule. I mean, it's to the point where you can't throw a block.
Right. I mean, like when I'm watching it in real time, I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So,
and I do think when I'm watching it that the Sage Ryan looks at Jade just before he's about to get
I thought too. Yeah. By the way, we're going to go to the Boss Firearms hotline here in a moment. So let's do that right now. Tyler from San Diego on the Boss Firearms hotline. Tyler, welcome to TexAgs Live. What's up, buddy?
Oh, thanks, guys. Good to be with you. Hey, listen, I wanted to make a comment real quick about Mike Elko and his leadership style as compared to our previous two coaches. It just seems to me as I watch the team react and how they're performing, et cetera, he's a guy who leads by example. Everybody's talking about accountability and blah, 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 blah. But I think it starts first with self-accountability by the head coach, walking the talk. And I just don't sense from the performance of our teams and how they faded under Kevin Sumlin and Jimbo Fisher, I just don't think those guys were, walking the talk. I don't think they were, being self-accountable so that people would then hold themselves accountable around them. And I think it really is telling about the way this team plays all four quarters and is getting it done. I really believe that. What do you guys think?
Man, and I mean this with a lot of respect. I'm so far removed from the old regime, and that sure there were some. Obviously, they made a huge move, right? Financial move, and the future of the program to put yourself in this position with the right coach. There were some fundamental issues with that staff that we saw play out over time. But I'm so far removed from it, and I hate looking back. I know why we do it. Like we all do it. Like last year, this happened. This is what's happening now. That's part of conversation.
Well, I mean, I mean to do it as a compliment to Coach Elko.
I get it. I totally. And
that's the only reason I'm using those two as an example of what I'm talking about. I'm with you. I'm forward thinking. I'm moving forward, but in comparison, I just use that as an example as to, and hopefully maybe even Coach Sherrill's listening to this too, and he can add a little feedback to it as well. Not to be critical of Kevin and Jimbo because they're their own people, but I'm just using that as an example as a compliment to Coach Elko.
Well, I'm not shy about being critical of those guys, but I'm with. Look, Coach Elko from the first day on the job or the second day when he said, "Hey, I got to make a change at receivers coach, and I got to make a change at offensive line coach." Mm-hmm. So first things I've got to get in better shape with the men's and fences with the Texas high school coaches. He did that. I think he looked at a situation and said, before the Missouri game, we got a big game coming up, and I think Connor's the right guy. All right, so he makes that decision, puts himself on the line on that when opens himself to criticism if it doesn't go well, and then the guy he put back in the starting lineup, he'll take him out. I know there are players that have been productive here that aren't playing as much. Why? Because maybe that's Mike Elko holding guys accountable for the way they do things. So to your point, I think he's done a great job. I think he's holding people accountable. He holds himself accountable. He took a lot of the blame for, as a good coach will, for the loss to Notre Dame. And I think there's every reason to be excited about what Michael Elko has done so far and what he's going to do in the future.
And I'll end with this.
Well,
I love his.
compliments to him, and I'll just hang up and just say gig 'em Aggies.
All right.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Good call. I'll say this. One of the things that definitely wasn't there, in my opinion, after 21 was the halftime adjustments that we have seen. This team, their in-game coaching and halftime adjustments, I mean, we've seen it all season long.
Well, we were even talking about, well,
what's he going to do?
What's the adjustments going to be? And they were significant, and they were amazing.
Yeah, you know what? We should probably take Coach Elko to go eat at 1775.
Well, he's definitely earned it.
I mean, do we do it now? Do we wait? What do you think?
Well, I think they should be up to Coach Elko. Now, he might be busy, but if he could break away, there's no better place to break away to for lunch or for dinner.
All right,
than
here's my public invitation. Mike, I know you're dialed in and listening right now because, what else you got to do, right?
Yeah, who isn't?
Who isn't? All right, on Thursday, if you would like, OB would certainly pay for your lunch at 1775. I'll go, and he'll pay for my lunch as well, and it'll be great. And you can have the queso mac and cheese, the ribs,
ribs, the brisket, the sausage. They got turkey. They got it all. Chicken. Whatever you want. 1775. They will deliver the same way Mike Elko has delivered for the Aggies.
But the difference is there's no second half adjustments. When you get the second half adjustment,
I'm adjusting my belt. Yes.
I knew it was coming. Set you up, baby. All right, 1775, open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m., 8203 Raymond Stosser Parkway in College Station. Call them up, 979-492-6241, 1775, TXBBQ.com. And we're back on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. It is the Rollo, obviously it's the Rollo Insurance Studio. It's the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creation. It's time for our weekly conversation with Jackie Sherrill, presented by Texas Best Home Loans. You trusted Jackie Sherrill to lead the Aggies to Southwest Conference titles. Now trust his son, Braxton Sherrill, to lead you to the best rates in home loans and refinancing at Texas Best Home Loans. Score better rates and lower fees with Braxton Sherrill. TXBestHomeLoans.com. It is an equal housing lender. We go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We are joined by the Jackie Sherrill. Coach Sherrill, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, especially after the win. You know, what a game to watch. And what a great game to have prospects to.
Heck yeah. Just talk about the atmosphere, the game, the storylines, Marcel Reed coming in and saving the day there in the second half. Just how you took it all in.
Well, the most important thing that I think that we all understand, that the fans and Kyle Field especially has become the number one stadium in the country. And, you know, we always talked about, you know, Death Valley and talked about Clemson, but Alabama, but Kyle Field, and they stepped up, and there's no question that fans did their job. Then you look at the game, and certainly with the change of the quarterbacks, but to me, what really won the game, and you're looking when you get ready to go play, you know, there was four things I always put on the bulletin board before we walked out the door: play physical, win the kicking game, run the football, and stop the run. And you look at the stats, and the game was won not only by Reed coming in and giving us a spark, but when has LSU ever run for only 24 yards? And then you look at A&M, you know, running for 242, and Moss and Daniels are getting better and better, but then you put Reed in the package, so you've actually got things that they have to defend, and I'm impressed the way he throws the football. He's pretty accurate.
Coach, look, you've been in that situation before where you feel like you might need to make a change of quarterback. How difficult is it to do, and when do you know it's time?
Well, it's a feel. You know, the worst thing, and I learned this years ago when Kenny Stabler was playing for Oakland and asking Coach, and he looked at me and he's about Kenny, when do you play Kenny? And he looked at me and he said, what can I say? Whatever you say is wrong. So whatever you tell your quarterbacks that you're going in here or you're going to do this before the game, during the game, it changes everything. So it's a feel, and you can't change that. And so far, every time the change has been made, it's worked. And you have to give a lot of credit to the coaches, but to the players. And being 5-0 at this time is a big deal. But even being 5-0 and being in the top 10, the next game, which is coming up on the road against South Carolina, is the most important game. It's because it's the next game.
Jackie, what about dominating the trenches? The offensive line in the second half certainly looked different, and part of that was the way Marcel had them looking like they were on skates, or on skis, I should say, and also the defensive line, who didn't have success getting to the quarterback Nuss in the first half. They changed that around quickly.
Yes. You know, we all talk about skilled people, and there's no question skilled people can make plays to help you win. But you win up front, offensively and defensively, and you got to tip your hat to the guys up front because they played very, very well. And if they continue to improve and play like they've been playing, you know, all of us that are Aggies got a chance to be real happy at the end of the year.
And speaking of staying happy, Coach. So, what would be your primary concern about your team after a big win at home and a win that everybody's going to be excited about for a long, long time, and then you have to go on the road against a pretty decent team the next week?
Well, and I know what everybody's thinking and what everybody's talking about is the last game of the year against Texas. So somehow the coaches, Coach Elko and the coaches, have got to keep the team focused that that's not the game until we get there. The most important is the game coming up this week, and you're on the road, so a lot of things happen. But, go back to this game, there's one or two or three plays a game that turns the game completely around or wins the game. But the interception by BJ, and all of a sudden you score on the next play, and then he comes back, that turned the game around. And certainly the missed field goal mechanics by LSU certainly hurt them. But you come right back a little later, and BJ makes another interception on a short field. So, those two interceptions were extremely big. But the first one was the play that I think turned the game completely around.
Coach Sherrill, great stuff. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. And hopefully that we come back with the win.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. We'll get you on. We'll talk all about it next week. Thank you again very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Jackie Sherrill there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Appreciate his time. That is brought to you by Texas Best Home Loans. I want for our good friend Jackson Oxney at the Angry Elephant Youth and Social Center to read this text from the 314 number about the game ball, because I got a couple thoughts on this.
Oh, yeah. You have one game ball. Who gets it, Reed or the secondary? He said, for me, it has to be the secondary. Reed was Reed. The secondary gut checked and turned it around hard.
I'm going to start, and then you tell me how you feel, okay?
Okay.
I think Billy hates when I use this line. We're not communist China. We don't have to pick one. We can do whatever we want, guys. This is a free country. It's a democracy.
Well, just play the game.
Okay, fine. I'll play the game. I'm going to go Reed, and here's my why.
Okay.
Absolutely, the interception, the B.J. Mays interception, changed the whole complexion of the game. Yes, I understand that. But it didn't matter if you couldn't score. You were down 17-7. You had to score. And he scored on every single possession. He had the ball except the one where we kneeled it out.
Of course, the secondary made it easy for him to score.
Sure.
Because they didn't have to go far. But here's why I'm going to say Reed. All the things you just said, plus I'm going to add into there. The pass defense was so good, but it wasn't just the secondary. Because I can tell you, if we ever get to it, what I thought one of the biggest key plays in the game that's easy to forget was executed by Scooby Williams.
Oh.
You remember that play? Do you?
Remind me, because I remember we talked about it at the side.
The Aggies had just scored. They're up 17. They're down 17.
I made the sound effects, and I was like, wait, which play is he?
They're down 17-14.
Yeah.
Right?
I do remember
they
that.
LSU's going right down the field.
Yeah.
And it's a 3rd and 7. Yeah, 3rd and 7 at the 29. And number 0 for LSU, I can't remember his name. He's going to catch the ball. He has caught the ball. The ball is in his hands. He has caught the ball. It's in his hands at the 15. It's going to be first down. And Scooby just knocks the living daylights out of him, and the ball comes loose.
And it looked like he had it.
Oh, he's got it. It's in his hands. He just hit him so hard the ball came out. So now, instead of having first down and add to the lead add to the lead that LSU still has, now they have to settle for a field goal attempt. And what happens on that field goal attempt? They botch it, and then A&M goes down and takes the lead, and it all starts with Scooby Williams knocking the crap out of that guy.
100%. And at that point, I don't remember what their third down completion rate was, but it felt like every time they had a 3rd and long, they got it.
Yeah.
Every time. Or the A&M would give it to him with a dumb penalty. All right, we're going to hit a break here. We'll come back with Around Aggieland and some former thoughts. By the way, I'm going on my first hunt here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Elmer.
And I hope there's video of me that shows how good I am with the shotgun. That's what I'm hoping, right? Like, because I know that there's sometimes people float videos on social media like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I admit it. I'm new to the game, but they're teaching me at Bird Dog. I know it.
I want to see those videos too. I've probably seen them before. When it's a duck season, wabbit season, duck season, wabbit season.
Well, the TexAgs wing shoot, which you can do your own little social media video of myself, is on November the 6th or the 8th at Brady, Texas. Go to birddogit.com/TXAGS hunt. That's where you can get all the details on it, but I'll give you some of it. Here it is. You come to Brady, Texas. 2-night upland shoot. Aggie legends will be there. Chris Harrington will be there. I'll be there. I'm not on the legends side.
Dick Cheney's not going to be there, so you're going to be safe.
Not. Yeah, I'll be, and I'm going to be. I got my orange thing ready to go. My best. It's going to be good. Guided hunting, skeet shooting, axe throwing, cold beverages, Aggie fellowship, and of course, a live music from a country star legend, Roger
Krieger. You won't be having fun all wrong on that trip.
Yeah. Everclear, baby. Everclear. That's my jam right there. But anyway, it is Bird Dog. birddogit.com/TXAGS hunt. And they are basically an Airbnb for hunters and for ranchers. Check it out. The all-inclusive hunt coming on November the 6th through 8th at Brady, Texas. Welcome back in. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Time for Around Aggieland, presented by Norman G. State Bank. Norman G. State Bank, rock solid banking. The website is normangstatebank.com. And with that, we have Kay Naegeli.
Good morning.
How was Saturday with the old guys?
It's always great. Sitting next to bestie number 1 and bestie number 2. Y'all are some real goobers.
Thank you very much for it. And I'm number 2 on the list.
Okay,
you said number 1 and number 2.
Whichever way you want to go.
I guess Kay won't be getting that assignment anymore.
No, she won't be. I think we were pretty tame for us. No, your face.
No, well, okay. First half, you didn't know what was coming. To be quite honest, and I remember you telling me before the game, so I'll give you props here again. Said the physicality of it was going to win it, and down the stretch.
That's what it was.
What was the difference? That's what it was. So let's get right into it. A&M saw its third largest crowd at Kyle Field as they out-physicaled LSU in the second half behind Marcel Reed. BJ Mays had 2 interceptions. Some key stats, A&M owned a 242 advantage over to 24 rushing yards for LSU, including 144-0. They had 0 rushing yards in the second half, didn't even try to run the ball. This is the 5th time this season A&M has held its opponents to less than 100 rushing yards. That's a heck of a stat. They are also 5-0 in the conference slate. That is the first time that's happened since 7-0 start in the Big 12 back in 1998. Heck of a start for Mike Elko's Aggies. They now move to number 10 in the AP poll. They trip to South Carolina on the way. That is at 6:30 p.m. next Saturday. That should be a good one. And the effects of Texas A&M football winning a massive game like that is recruiting. Elko and company secured 3 commitments following a raucous crowd at Kyle Field. That is wide receiver Aaron Gregory, defensive end Jordan Carter. They are both from Douglas County, and then a Milton wide receiver, C.J. Wiley. He is a 2025 prospect. Those are awesome gets for Mike Elko. So let's move on over to some basketball. A&M basketball and Houston met for a charity exhibition just last night to benefit the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance Hurricane Barrel Recovery Fund. The Cougs unfortunately defeated the Aggies 79-64. A&M shot just 27.8% from 3 and then 67% from the free throw line. Not the greatest outing there shooting-wise, but their 2024 campaign will kick off November 4th against UCF. So hopefully we can see those shooting numbers improve. On the baseball front, Mike Early and company put on a show with a 13-1 exhibition victory over Houston as well. That was their last fall ball game, so that is the last we will see of his squad. Man, we had so much going on this weekend. We had A&M soccer. They fell to Mississippi State. They will be in their SEC tournament. Volleyball plays Alabama this upcoming Friday. Trisha Ford's softball program has a maroon and white game on Tuesday, and the women's golf team will wrap up its fall portion, starting with a tournament today.
Longest intro of all time. Welcome back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, hour number 2 of the program. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline, Aggieland's premier gun and accessory shop. They've got all you need to build your next firearm. Check them out at bossfirearms.com. And we go there, and that's where we find the Tom Hart. Tom, good morning, buddy.
What's up, man? How was Saturday night? It looked insane.
It was fun, man. It was weird because you probably know this about me. I'm a little emotional football fan. And the first half, I didn't have a lot of fun, Tom, to be very honest with you. In fact, I had a terrible time. I was ready to go home. I even made that comment, I want to go home. But the second half, it was amazing. Like, it couldn't get any better. It was fantastic after that second series.
I thought the timing of bringing Marcel Reed into the game with the short field was perfect. I was just peeked behind the curtain. I was texting you during the game because I was watching with an Aggie, by the way, with an A&M grad who was as into it as any fan I've ever watched a game with. But we're at a restaurant in Nashville. We had it on a huge screen, but we had no sound. And I think this combination of quarterbacks is an incredible security blanket for Mike Elko, right? I mean, let's not lose sight of the fact that Connor was not throwing the ball well and did not have an efficient game. So to be able to go then to Marcel and have that style of play be something that LSU was completely unprepared for, I think was an incredible ace up the sleeve. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, by my count, this is the second top 10 opponent that's come into Kyle Field and not been prepared for A&M's quarterback situation, with Missouri being the first.
That is correct.
Was not prepared for Wigman. You know, he said, no, Marcel Reed's got him off to a great run. He's won 4 straight. Obviously, they're going to play him. And then they got torched by Wigman. So I think it's an incredible 1-2 punch. It's something that you wouldn't necessarily think of being part of a successful program in college football unless you go back to like the Steve Spurrier days when he was rotating quarterbacks every snap.
So, Tom, there's a long way to go. Absolutely. This game does put A&M in this awesome position. But look, I think South Carolina, that's going to be a fight right there, man. Like that's going to be tough. I think going to Auburn is always tough for A&M, and obviously to close out with Texas. But that being said, the way you look at A&M today, as opposed to the way you looked at them maybe heading into the season, how much has changed seeing the product now?
So I was thinking about this morning on my coffee run, and I was thinking the first thought that came to mind was, well, A&M's playing with house money, right? I mean, this record and the results are so much better than where I thought they were going to be. When we talked in the preseason, it was, man, 8 wins would be fantastic, right? Year one, a rebuild, get to a bowl. You get to 8 wins, holy smokes. But I quickly pivoted away from that because now the pressure is really on because every single game matters. And I know people are already, I got texts from some people yesterday, some A&M people looking forward to the Texas game. Hey, you just saw Texas. Tell me about them. And that's great. And I understand how huge that game is going to be. That's probably going to be primetime, ABC, trip to Atlanta on the line, right? All of that is possible. But the bottom line is with the seeding now in a 12-team playoff, you have to beat South Carolina because the difference between climbing up and being a better seeded team is the difference between a home game or going on the road, maybe to Penn State, or if you continue to climb. Now, obviously, if you win the SEC, everything takes care of itself, right? You get a top 4 seed, you're golden. Obviously, no one can assume that. So what else is on the line? Man, that 5 spot is really, really beneficial because now all of a sudden, when you go on the road, A, you're getting a 12 seed, so you're probably getting Boise State. And then B, you get a chance likely to go to the Big 12 champ. Would you rather go on the road? Would you rather go play BYU or Iowa State or any of those other Power 4, like legit powerhouse championship teams? And it's a no-brainer. So it's no longer house money. Now it's an opportunity. Now it's an opportunity to better position yourself to win a national championship.
When you look at what Coach Elko is doing this year, and not just the results, and I know you don't watch every A&M game with the same kind of microscope we do, so I'm not asking that, but the second half adjustments we have seen from this team, to me, like you just all you have to look at is the box score. Arkansas, no offense. Fourth quarter, domination. LSU, first half, no offense. Second half, domination. And they've grown so much from that Notre Dame game. Just talk about what you've seen from Coach Elko, what he talked about in the preseason to what we're actually seeing right now?
I think maybe the biggest difference here, and I'm just throwing pasta on the wall and see what sticks, but defensive coaches cannot let their ego get in the way. They can come into the week with a very specific game plan, and they can say, this is how we're going to attack. This is how we're going to shut down this offense. But everybody has to be able to make adjustments. And you have to go into a game and go, we were wrong, man. That first half, we tried our week-long game plan, and it did not work. We need to make a major adjustment. And that's how you have confidence to change your quarterback. That's how you don't let your ego get in the way to try to prove to everybody, I was right all week. No, it's be right in the second half and come out and win this game. And I know his comments post-game are getting a lot of attention, and who were they directed to? Who were they about and all that stuff. But I think what he said, if you just look at it, was right. And I think it's a secret to this success. Like, there's a difference. I heard this criticism of the Jets this morning. They're not a team. They're just a roster. Right. And I think that could be said of some of these Aggie teams in the last few years. That great roster, not a great team. This is a great team and certainly a good enough roster to win a national title now. And I don't know if we saw that, in July, August, and even September.
I'm laughing because it hit me in the middle of you talking. I got a couple of texts, and I think even a tweet about it, that if I was mad at you because you hadn't been on the show in the last couple of weeks. I'm like, no, Tom's my guy. I think one week you were traveling, another week Billy came in earlier or something. I'm not mad at Tom Hart. That's my guy.
I'm glad you're not. Now, I will say, I don't want to upset you, but you kind of hit on it a moment ago. This South Carolina team is for real.
Yep.
I had them their last game against Oklahoma. They had 9 sacks by 9 different players. And Oklahoma's offensive line is hot garbage, and I get that. But they are very aggressive defensively. They're up 21-0 in that game before the blink of an eye. 2 defensive scores, a pick 6 and a scoop and score. I will say this. As this A&M team goes forward, they have the luxury of kind of picking and choosing which quarterback is the best to attack a given defense. They have elite defensive ends and linebackers and D-line too, talking Hemingway, that get after the quarterback. If you can run the football, and especially if you can get an advantage with a running quarterback, you can negate a lot of that South Carolina pressure, and I would expect that's the direction A&M goes.
Well, they're a team to me that scares me because if you look at their games, they've lost, 3 games this year? They're 4-3, I believe. But they can beat anybody, and they should have beat LSU. And by the way, to me,
and they should have beaten Alabama.
Yeah,
that was a win that was in their pocket.
And I know going there is a different animal. Like when A&M went there 2 years ago, a lot of it was self-induced, but it was 17-0 in the blink of an eye in the first 5 minutes of the game. Like that crowd is rowdy. It may not be as big as Kyle Field, but it is rowdy. You feel them.
Yeah, I mean it's a smaller crowd, but a very intense crowd. And with a night game and a week off after the win against Oklahoma, they're going to be ready. And I think you always have to keep in mind with Shane Beamer, and I talk to him about it every game, he is going to have multiple tricks up his sleeve because he understands the value of momentum within a football game. And if things aren't going well for them, get ready for something. Their punter is an NFL caliber punter with who's 7 of 8 passing in his career. Like he is, and he had the most beautiful onside kick I've ever seen in that Alabama game, which was a drop kick spinner that I hadn't ever seen. But they have an NFL special teams coach who spent 30 years in the league. Like they're a very well coached team, and they can be non-traditional in how they attack you if they don't think they match up well athletically. That'll be a dogfight Saturday night, and A&M can prove that they belong at the top of the standings if they go in there and pull out a dominating win.
Tom, what does this mean for LSU moving forward? Obviously, a huge game with Bama coming up. Brian Kelly's been excellent at LSU, but I don't think, unless they make the playoffs this year, I think he has, after that first season, I think they thought so much, obviously winning the SEC West and going to the SEC championship game. I think they're a really good program. Obviously, their history and even recent history, but I think in the fans' eyes, they're underperforming.
Without a doubt. And bigger picture college football eyes just kind of like widening out. Marcus Freeman has a better record against top 10 opponents at Notre Dame than Brian Kelly does at LSU. Like that, you've got to be able to win big games when you're at LSU. And, I think BK is a great CEO. He can run a franchise. But you kind of saw, I don't know, I was watching the TV version, obviously. The interaction with his guys when mistakes are made are very different. Like it feels like a professional environment. And there's nothing wrong with holding people accountable. But when your quarterback is feeling the pressure of 101,000, and one of the most incredible scenes we've seen in college football in the last handful of years, and he's already thrown one pick, and then he throws another, and you don't pat him on the back, but you jump him, well, guess what? He's going to throw a third. I think there's a different kind of relationship at play there. And obviously there's pressure to win at LSU when the previous three guys all won a national championship. It's just expected down there because that's what everybody has seen. No matter who's sitting behind that desk, they brought home the trophy. And all three very different coaches, from Saban to Les to Orgeron. I mean, you put those guys on a spectrum and they're all over the map.
If the public were voting, do you think they would vote for Diego Pavia as your Heisman winner?
Yeah, that's a funny question. No, I think he's lovable, and I think he had great momentum. And I love talking to him about the Manziel comps. I mean, it's why he wears number 2 and he runs around crazy. He's certainly not as skilled as Johnny was, but he does have the gravitas that Johnny brought to the table, and that can be enough to lift an entire program. As wild as that sounds, just one guy. But talking to those Vandy players, like this guy has so much bravado and so much confidence. And I ran into Tim Corbin before the game, Vandy's baseball coach, right? And I'm literally walking through the parking lot, and Corbs lights up at the thought of Diego Pavia. And he said, Tom, he comes to my office every week. It's like, why is he coming to your office? Because he wants to talk about leadership. And he just pops in and says, Corbs, how do I coach up my offensive line when they false start? And I think that's a guy that's a lot more mature on the inside than maybe he shows in the game with the spirit he plays with.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. So Missouri, I think they're still ranked. Huge loss. I understand when Brady Cook's not out there. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Can they turn this season back around?
Well, they're going to fall short of where their expectations were, obviously. And I said this at the beginning, like, if you're a team that has designs on the playoff and you miss out on it, it really depends on what your branding is and what your history is as to how your fans feel about it. A 9-win season would still be sensational for Missouri, right? LSU fans feel differently. Like, if they miss out on the playoff because they have 3 losses, that's a different feeling. And I think the other thing it shows is if you're at the level of Missouri, which is a constant, like, middle of the pack SEC team from a resource standpoint and historically recruiting standpoint, the margin of error is so thin, right? You can't lose your starting quarterback because you just don't have the depth there that then pull it out. And you lose your starting quarterback and your number 1 running back. It's just the value of the replacement player has to be through the roof to try and pull you even in a game against an Alabama caliber team, and they just don't have it. So yeah, it can be salvaged because the end goal and the pressure is less there than it is at many other places.
So Texas, a lot of people talking about Quinn not being comfortable, what Vandy was able to do. I mean, I still think they should win the remainder of their schedule before the A&M game there on November 30th. What are you seeing from Texas?
Same question I got from somebody in the athletic department yesterday that was really wanting to know. And I appreciate the looking forward to that game, right? I mean, like, after the LSU win, it's like, okay, what are our odds to get to Atlanta? How do we beat Texas? Everybody in college football, even the top teams, they all have warts. You know, they all have issues. And Texas's offensive line has really struggled. And not only did they struggle clearing holes in the run game on Saturday against Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt was 14th in the league in sacks. And I think they had 5 sacks that game, 5 or 6 sacks. Like, to allow pressure to a Vanderbilt team that doesn't typically bring pressure or have the guys to win with just 4 up front shows the weakness of that offensive line. And then they turn their passing game into just a short, quick passing game to make it basically their extended run game. Their wide receivers are really good. They have elite speed, and they get this blocking on the perimeter with just one wide receiver and a very small wide receiver screen. That scheme can work against outmatched defensive backfields like Vanderbilt was. That's harder to work when you're playing elite teams who can match your speed. I think their defense is sensational. They hit hard. The back end is really good. They had a couple of key takeaways in that game. The linebackers are good. The D-line is legit. But offensively, and Quinn, by the way, was great in what he was asked to do, which was complete the short passes, get you guys the ball quickly, and let them pick up some yards after catch. He had 17 straight completions at one point. I think he went 17 of 19 in the first half, but their downfield attack wasn't there. And so I think that offense has a long way to go to try and win big games against teams that can really put pressure on you.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Live. I feel like Sam Pittman, if he hasn't saved his job, is saving his job, right? Like, doesn't it feel that way? Like, not only because they beat Mississippi State with astronomical numbers, but just overall, the vibe around that program feels like, hey, we're going somewhere again.
Every game he proves his value as a head coach. And the biggest question in the offseason, it was first week of December, I think it was December 5th. Arkansas hosted Duke in a basketball game, and it was wild. Like, the place was packed. It was an incredible scene. The atmosphere was electric. It was one of the first big games of the college basketball season. And the ESPN camera showed Bobby Petrino with Pittman sitting right next to him, and they didn't shoot Pittman. And there was this foreboding that Petrino's offense would score points, but they wouldn't win games, and then he would just walk back into that head coach's office. And I think their ability to work well together has been the secret to their success this season. And everybody in Arkansas, not just Arkansas, I mean, Pittman is a very lovable guy, 100%. So I think it's fun to see him do well and to see that program have success underneath him.
Last thing, is Oklahoma going to get bowl eligible this year?
Man, I don't know. I think their offense looked good in the first half, but you really question, like, you fire an offensive coordinator whose ties to the program go back to, I think, the early 70s. Like, his dad was a coach there. Seth Luttrell played there on the national championship team. And what do? You hand the reins to his co-offensive coordinator. The problems with Oklahoma start with the transition from Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables. While Texas was building for the SEC and building up front, Oklahoma was in a transition period. And that offensive line is just not good enough to win in this league, even if they had their top 5 wide receivers healthy. So they've got it. You'd have to break down each and every game remaining in their schedule, and they're going to have some luck to find some of those wins to make it to a bowl. But it has been a not so good season on the Prairie, that's for sure.
Tom, we appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much.
David, great to see you, man.
All right, man. Take care. Tom Hart there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Appreciate his time here on the program. When we come back, Billy will be with us. Let's talk about good bull. Obviously, this past weekend was great bull with A&M dominating LSU. But if we're talking about things that you can do that Aggie families are doing all around, how about Rollo Insurance? I've been doing it. Liucci's been doing it. Gabe Bach, who used to host the show, has been doing it. It's what thousands and thousands of Aggies have been doing for a long time. Go to rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs and discover for yourself. There's no substitute for the objective, consultative, loyal, and personal, accessible agent that you're going to get through Rollo Insurance. You can learn more again at rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. If you buy insurance for anything, you owe it to yourself to explore the piece that accompanies a relationship-based objective approach to managing risk. Go to rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs to learn more today, or call them up 888-44-ROLLO. That's 888-44-ROLLO or rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. Everyone, David Nuño here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Jewelers, Rallo Insurance Studio, hour number 2 of the program. I want to talk about our friends at Lewis Engineering. They're headquartered in Marshall, Texas, and they're family owned and operated. Doug Lewis runs the show there. He's awesome. He's a great Aggie. He watches the games. He's probably watching right now in the chat. He'll say, "Hey, Nuño." You know, he's great. His company started with his great-grandfather back in the 60s, and it was during the Vietnam War. He was making these handheld signal flares that they still make to this day. And they manufacture mostly munitions for the Department of Defense here. Also looking to take on any machining or metal fabrication project. Aerospace industry, that's the big thing that they do. Automotive industry. And they specialize in high volume machining, metal plating projects. So if you need 100,000 pieces, they can take care of it. High production, they're the place for you. 40 employees, family owned and operated out of a 50,000 square foot facility, turnkey supplier. You need to check them out. You can call Doug up. He'll probably answer 903. I mean, this company will answer, but he might even answer and be like, "Hey, I'm Doug." 903 938-6754. That is 903-938-6754, or go to lewisengineeringco.com. That is lewisengineeringco.com. We go back to the Angry Elephant News, and Social Center Jackson Oxney has got some text. People have been kind of active this morning, Jackson, on both the YouTube page, TexAgs chat, and of course, the Little Sluggers text line.
Yeah, we got a text from Madden in Houston, and he said Elko took away what LSU was successful at and flipped that game in one quarter. That is something you see usually against a lesser opponent, not a top 10 team.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why, and I think I got this advice from Billy. I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it was Billy. Like, sometimes like having hot sports takes after the first drive or the second drive or the third drive, you don't have to tell the world because games evolve. That game, if it was just 2-quarter game, yeah, you'd have been very disappointed. But it was a 4-quarter game. And let's see the adjustments in the chess pieces. And with that, our Billy Liucci, who is our executive editor, co-owner, obviously, of TexAgs. Billy, that's like, I think you gave me that advice early on. Like, be careful what you tweet right away because there are game plans. There are things that you're trying to set up for later. And we saw them flip the script to a completely different approach in the second half.
No doubt. I mean, that's why I don't generally, I don't ever, you don't want to speak in absolutes, but I try my damnedest not to tweet during games. Whether I'm at the game, whether I'm at the game, whether I'm in the stands, whether I'm in the press box, whether I'm in, at home, if there's a road game I'm not at, whatever, maybe even more so with basketball. And you don't tweet when you're down 8 or 9-0 to Georgia in the first inning. You don't tweet when you're down, 12 in basketball in the first half at Kentucky, or when you're down, to U of H late and all hope looks lost in the NCAA tournament, or Northern Iowa. So yeah, it's tough. It's something that I've kind of learned not to do because the most regrettable ones you fire off and post or fire off tend to be that moment of frustration in the heat of battle. Look, I was like everybody else Saturday at 17-7 at halftime. When A&M didn't get points before halftime and they had crossed midfield, I'm like, okay, God, after the way this half has gone, if you're only down 7 and getting the ball, much less if you could somehow figure out how to punch this in for a touchdown and be down 17-14, like you would feel amazing, right? They got nothing. And everybody was walking around at halftime, and everyone that I saw said the same thing. And they were like, A, are we going to change quarterbacks? B, what's wrong? And it's like, yeah, LSU outplayed them for 30 minutes. They definitely did. And you're sitting there going, there's two sides to it. This isn't good. They have demonstrated over 30 minutes that they're better than you. For 30 minutes, though.
Right.
And you knew that Mike Elko and Jay Bateman could make some adjustments to where I felt good that they weren't going to come out and score 17 in the second half. So the question was, how does A&M do it? And Mike Elko and Colin Klein figured that out. And the defense figured it out. They said, okay, well, we're going to play our part by completely shutting this team down. So for the second week in a row, they have completely shut down an opposing offense after halftime. I mean, and really, if you go back, it's the fourth game in a row, correct, that they have. Okay, so Arkansas scored 1 touchdown after halftime. No, they kicked a field goal. They had 3 points after halftime. Missouri scored 10 garbage points, and they shouldn't have had 10 because Pinkel was a complete you-know-what for kicking that field goal down 41-7 at the end of a game. They scored 1. Yeah, sorry. Did I say Pinkel?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Gary Pinkel. This guy hasn't been coaching for like
12 years.
12 years, and I'm going on Monday morning assault on Gary Pinkel. Drink, who, by the way, made himself look like an ass again this weekend at Tuscaloosa. He's like talking trash to one of the Bama players.
I saw that.
Was he basically saying, like, if I'd had my quarterback, no, you still would have lost, Drink. But Drinkle did that. So 1 touchdown by Missouri, 3 points by Arkansas, 1 touchdown by Mississippi State, and that was on a 10-yard field.
Right.
Where they were guaranteed 3, basically. And one touchdown by LSU.
Yeah.
I mean, their second half defense has been absolutely remarkable. The only time it wasn't, since they started SEC play was Florida, but that was after they went up 33-7. So I think,
and people have not run on them in forever. Like Arkansas.
I mean, Mississippi State ran on them pretty good in the first quarter,
and that was it. It was taken after that.
Yeah. That was it. I mean, and then they got nothing, and that was with a mobile quarterback too, which makes it obviously that much harder. So, as LSU showed us on Saturday, but so you just never know. Like so, there are worlds where Klein can figure it out for Connor and settle him in, but that didn't happen. So then, guess what? On to plan B, which is, okay, we got a guy on the bench that got us to 3-0 when he had to start. We know this moment is not going to be too big for him. Let's put him in. Was it risky at all? I do think you run the risk with a quarterback like Connor, like Marcel, when you tell him, hey, we're going with the other guy. And they've both had to hear that now.
Yep.
I think it was probably tougher for Connor because you told Marcel that. Actually, I don't know who it's tougher for, Jackson. You got one quarterback who is playing good, and you tell him, hey, Connor's back healthy. He was a starter. We're going to go back to him. We feel like this matchup against Missouri favors him. That's tough to hear when you're in your head, you're going, man, I'm playing good. We're winning football.
But I think that's understandable in the moment, even though it's tough to hear, right?
I think it's tougher. Like, yeah, Connor has to know, man, things are not going good.
True.
He knows better than me, better than you, better than anybody watching that, man, this is tough sledding for me right now because he's been on the other side of it. He knows what good and momentum and when he's feeling it. But as a competitor, you always believe you can and want to fix it. And he was told, hey, we're going to go somebody else to fix this right now. That's really tough. And Mike Elko's done a great job with them. I was really pleased to see Connor so engaged. And I went back and rewatched it again last night. Watched it Saturday, watched it last night. Just seeing their interaction when things are going good and seeing Marcel going up to Connor to hey, not to pump him up and just about us in the game, just fired up and it's reciprocated by Connor. Like no one, he's not going to go home and throw a post-game party celebrating that game, but he was happy and he was happy for Marcel and he was really happy for the team. So that gives me hope that whatever happens moving forward, because there's still, here's the kind of conversations we have to start having now. There's 4 games left. There's still a third of your season, regular season. And what we need to start talking about is how many games are left after that. Because there could be a really important game the week after Texas. One that's even more important than the Texas game, believe it or not, would be the SEC title game. There could be a game a week or so after that. Maybe it's here at Kyle Field. Maybe it's not. Maybe A&M's the SEC champ. Who knows? I mean, those
are conversations you can.
And I said I wouldn't have them until after this one. And South Carolina is going to be a really difficult game for this team and for any team that goes there right now. When you stack in bye week, what they did to OU their last time out, that place is going to be rocking. Could be A&M, could be Georgia, could be Texas, could be Tennessee. Whoever was going in there this week, I'd say that is going to be a scary game. But even if they lost that game, which I like A&M in this football game, barely. It's going to be a gut check. But even if they didn't win it, those other games are still, you still control your own destiny. If A&M won this weekend, beat Auburn, beat Texas. There's a world, no. If A&M won this weekend, beat Auburn, lost to Texas, there's a world where, and I don't know all the tie breaks yet. I haven't dove into those. I'm not going to until after this weekend. There'd be a world where Georgia, Texas, and A&M could all be one loss, or the winner of Tennessee, Georgia, right?
Right.
So I don't know who would go where in that instance. But if you lost to South Carolina and won out, then A&M would be, correct me if I'm wrong, they would be a lock
for Atlanta
to be in the SEC title game. Because Texas would have 2, LSU's already got 2, Bama's got 2. The only one-loss teams
Georgia
are Georgia and LSU. So I guess, in theory, you could be a Georgia, LSU, A&M.
And you would have the tiebreaker.
Because you beat LSU head-to-head.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only head-to-head. So I would think, and by the way, I think LSU loses another game. I think they lose another one.
Might be their next one.
They play Bama. They've also got they've got OU who they'll beat, but LSU's got Bama. Who else do they have? They have somebody. Oh, they have Florida on the road, and I think
they've got Vandy, which could be that's
they've got Vandy at home, Florida on the road, and Bama. I could certainly see them losing one of those.
One of those, yeah.
Regardless, my point is, if A&M, if you told me they're going to lose one of their next 3, you would really say you'd be better off with it being one of these next 2. But then you run the risk of, if you lose to Texas, you're not in the playoff. So they're all just as big as each other. If A&M wins this weekend, my gosh, it's going to be, you have guaranteed. If you win this weekend, you will guarantee that Texas game is for the highest of stakes, not just for the SEC, but also the playoff, and that's even regardless of Auburn. So they just get bigger and bigger. But I said I wouldn't talk about it until they beat LSU. So now to me, it's real. It is really real. There are 3 SEC games left. We're past the halfway point. There are 3 out of 8 left, and A&M is one of essentially 4 teams left standing. Tennessee, Georgia, who play each other, A&M, Texas, who play each other. I know there are different scenarios, but those are really and truly the 4 teams left standing. I know Ole Miss would raise their hand. I know LSU, Bama would raise their hand.
Things have to happen for that.
But those are the 4 right now. I would be shocked if 2 of those 4 were not in Atlanta.
All right. Right now we're talking about career opportunities with the Association of Former Students. If you're thinking about moving back to Aggieland, or you're already living here and you're looking for a new opportunity, you should reach out to the association, because they look to hire professionals in many walks of life: marketing, fundraising, communications, many different areas. You can go work for them. They're the premier alumni association and the oldest organization supporting A&M, and they play a part in every Aggie story from Howdy to here. Don't miss an opportunity to help out with Aggie Socials, Howdy Socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie Muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies those Aggie core values of integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service, all in support of that worldwide Aggie network. If you're interested in joining a team or sharing with someone who would be a great fit, please visit tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It is the Association of Former Students. And we're back on a very short segment of TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Talk to me a little bit about your convo with Nick Scorton yesterday, which, by the way, you should go check it out at TexAgs.com.
Is it out?
I believe it's out. Yeah, it's out this morning.
Yeah,
I saw it this morning.
I wish, not that there's like any crazy details, but it's kind of how I told them, like, we started that just talking about Kyle Field. It was kind of an awkward, like, rolling start. But I said, you know what, let's do that. Who cares? Like, we don't need to always introduce and go, like, let's go with that. Because I wish you could hear the whole conversation with Nick. Like, just, you know, the whole thing when he walks into the studio and we sit down and we start talking about the game, or we start talking about various things. So it started where I was like, no, let's use that, which was him saying, man, I remember being a little kid watching them blow up that stadium and watching them build it. Like, every time we drive by, you know, when I was a little kid, I'd see that stadium being built. And just how much it means for him to wear that uniform and then to play in a game like that. And it's just, he's one part of like BJ Mays. He told, I thought, a great story. He said, hey, he had a rough moment at practice this week where, like, the coaches got on him for whatever, you know, he did or didn't do, you know, when they were working. And Nick said he went up to him and said, hey, just, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, just hang in there. You're going to do something. And he comes out and he hung in, had the biggest game of his life.
Yep.
And you look at BJ's, and here he is picking off Nuss. You look at BJ's story, and his path to getting here is really interesting as well. You look at, like, so many of these guys, especially on that defense, their path's incredible. Marcel Reed, you know, his story is just still being written, but what he did Saturday night was, like, legendary stuff. What this team is doing is they're getting into this area now where they're into uncharted waters as far as A&M football goes. 5-0, never happened in the SEC. Yep. I'd like to see the last time A&M was ranked this high. I guess it was Mississippi State the year they lost that one. So once since being in the SEC, I guess a couple times it's been that way. There was 2020, 2012, but this one, like we've talked about, there are things that could have happened in 2012. Bama, that was late in the year when they beat Bama, so they'd have had to lose. Bama would have had to lose another one, which they weren't. Same thing in 2020. Bama wasn't going to lose a game. It's interesting to see, like, how this is the first time since probably 1998 that Texas A&M has been in control of its destiny in a conference race. And more importantly, it's the first time since they've been in the best league in college football. Although you could contend that back then the Big 12 was the best league in college football. So you have to go back 25 years now, more than 25 years. A quarter century since A&M's been this deep in the season and say, hey, if we win our games, we'll be there this late. So, and I don't know how I got there from you talking about Nick Scorton, but it's just his story, BJ Mays' story, Marcel Reed's story, Mike Elko's story. Like, Colin Klein's got a story. You know, he left his alma mater to come here and coach these guys, and you see this offense coming together. You look at TJ Shanahan and Cam Dewberry and these guys that are coming off the bench to play and say, okay, go out there and start against LSU this week and that ferocious defense that we've all been hearing about. Okay, fine, we'll do it. And we'll run for 240 yards. So nothing gets in their way. They just keep going. And it's been really fun to watch. I'll tell you what else was fun to watch. You're going to a break?
I'll wait.
Rewatching that game, nothing makes me more fired up than seeing these running backs run downhill and run over and through
people, yep.
LSU tacklers time after time after time. Like, and then down by the goal line, it doesn't even look like they're doing that because they're running through those tackles so easily. LSU just bouncing off these guys, and you don't notice it in real time. You watch it on tape, and you're like, they're just not even affecting
Right.
Moss and Daniels' path to the end zone. They're just going. So that to me, those two guys epitomize what this team has been about too. I don't think we talk about that enough. Like that level of physicality. And LSU talked all that trash all week. And Armaj Reed Adams talked it back. And Trey Zune said, normally I cringe when I hear things like this because there's always, in college football, there's a lot of talk that's not backed up. And when Trey Zune said it, I believed it. When he said, our goal is to go out there and run the football, and he basically said, and they're going to try to stop us, and they're not. And you know what they didn't do? They didn't stop them. And they got humiliated, 242 yards to 24. So to talk it and back it up, pregame, LSU guys are talking smack. Scorton says something, he goes over, then Shamar Turner goes over there. They get into it, pretty heated.
Yep.
And that's the attitude that A&M took into that football game. This Armaj Reed Adams with the chair, like they are taking on a tough guy attitude. They're embracing it. They're not backing down from it. They're not going to be intimidated by anybody. And that's what it takes to win in this conference.
I'm going to drop it right there. By the way, we got a bunch of new people watching the YouTube page. If you can, like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate it. So many of you are new to the channel. Check it out, and hopefully you can be a part of it here in the future. Right now, we're talking Milliken Reserve. They're a farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got farms, they got wide open spaces, and their mission is to build a healthy community around nature. They've done that by creating a sanctuary for family, for nature, and community. Speaking of community, on the 29th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Gardening 101. Sunrise Coffee on Halloween morning, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. You can volunteer at the farm November 1st, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. You can do that again on the 2nd. So many great events. The farm stand November 2nd, 8 a.m. to noon. That's what Milliken Reserve is all about. You can check out the website to learn more details. MillikenReserve.com. That is MillikenReserve.com. Go check it out. And as a reminder, the final segment of the show is brought to you by Double Dave's. That is at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's, serving Aggieland since 1984. They have your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. And as a reminder, they are not open on Mondays. Billy, we have about a minute 10 left here. So a thought that hit me when you were talking in the last segment is the thin margins we've talked about these last few years, where A&M is a play away, a score away from winning these games and flipping the 7-5 season.
Yeah.
And those plays are happening this year the different way. It's still very thin margins, right? The LSU game was a 15-point win, but it felt closer than that at times.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. You were playing comeback. The Arkansas game. Thin margins in that game.
Yeah.
But it's so nice when you know that this team's going to put themselves in that position to make those plays.
Not only put themselves in that position, but just they believe they're going to do it. And you watching believe they're going to do it. Like you do. And I know down 10 to a team as good as LSU, and listen, LSU's a really good team. I think there gets to be some confusion in Baton Rouge sometimes. People that know me know that is a really good team. It's a really good program. I just don't think they're the Bama, Georgia. But to go beat that team and come from behind like that was special.
Hour number 3, up next. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in this Monday morning after a big A&M victory over LSU. Sets up another big game at South Carolina. And if you're watching college football, you know South Carolina can beat anybody in the country with that incredible defensive line. We'll talk about that as the week goes on. But Billy, you wanted to add a little bit more. So I asked you about the thin margins, and then you kind of started going down the path about LSU.
Yeah, so like to me, LSU, and we talked about this yesterday, they're not a national championship team or program right now, in my opinion, under Brian Kelly. I know they won it in 2019. That was now 5 years ago. I wish Texas A&M had a national title in the last 5 years. I hope that Mike Elko and the Aggies can get one in the next 5. And that would be A&M's first one since 1939. So drop all your talking points and understand that what I'm saying is fact. LSU is typically a 3-loss in the regular season or more team. You rarely more. Usually it's around 3 though, but it's not. They don't typically lose 1 or 2, and they're not typically in the national title hunt in November anymore, with the exception of 2019, which was a hell of an exception. Trust me, it was one of the best teams ever. But factually, since A&M joined the SEC, this is a team that will drop 3 games or more. So it's not, they're not Georgia, they're not Alabama, but they are a really good football program. Brian Kelly's a really good coach. There's a ton of NFL talent on that football team, and they showed it Saturday night. That quarterback's really good. I think they overhype him right now to say number 1, this and that. Me and McGee were talking about it, and Steven's like, man, he does so many things that the NFL loves, and so many, and I get it. We saw it in the first half. I've seen it several times this year. I saw it in their bowl game against Wisconsin, but I also see things that I'm like, he needs to play a lot more college football, in my opinion, the rest of this year and next year. And by the way, he hasn't played very much college football, so it's understandable because he was behind a Heisman Trophy winner. Hell, LSU fans should be super excited because the last 2 QBs to come in here to Kyle Field and lose went on to win a Heisman the next year in Daniels and Burrow. But my point of that is this game and what LSU fans didn't understand and what I don't think people around the country understood. LSU understood it. They just didn't want to, and they don't want to give A&M credit. Historically, A&M is not on the level that LSU's been since Nick Saban got there. Right. When he got there, he changed everything for them, and he left this like wealth of talent, and it was so much so that Les Miles couldn't destroy it, and it still carried on all the way through even Ed O. Now I think they've got a damn good coach in Brian Kelly, but I know they've got questions about him in Baton Rouge in terms of him winning a championship there. I think they should be pretty damn excited when you look at how they're recruiting and stuff. And people get upset in Baton Rouge that I said he's going to look at the Michigan job or he covets it. I wasn't the only one that said that because it was true. It's kind of an unsettled marriage to me, but you see that in sports a lot where it just still works. And one instance, and it's a little different, but Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State is one of those type deals. Mark Stoops in Kentucky is one of those type deals. And I know they want more success than that. But these things sometimes tend to work out. Lincoln Riley should have accepted that and stayed at OU. And I think both he and that program would be in a different place right now. So it's not to say it can't work. I just think, though, we meaning media, and particularly media outside of TexAgs, like they build up LSU a little too quickly. They jumped on them a little too quickly. They should have jumped on both A&M and LSU. Both teams had a lot going into this game, a lot of the exact same things. And everybody's watching LSU, and they go, damn, man, they look so good at Arkansas. And A&M was in a dogfight with Mississippi State. How much of this league are we not watching this year to say, that's just life in the SEC?
Right.
Don't put too much into it, okay? And if you watched the Ole Miss game, you knew that, yes, credit LSU beating Ole Miss at home in overtime. That's a massive win in this conference. They stormed the field. They should have been excited. But if you look through it, you go, man, I saw so many times where Ole Miss could have put that thing away, and they couldn't quite do it. You saw Nussmeier complete 40%. You saw LSU not be able to run the ball. You saw the mistakes, at quarterback. You saw that even at South Carolina. There were reasons to, if you're evaluating this game, to go, A&M had a really good chance to win. And I felt like too many people were quick to kind of go the LSU direction. And they were vindicated and justified at halftime in thinking so. But then, as it turns out, it was exactly like we said, a 4-quarter fight.
Right.
But it was a fight that A&M delivered it was like one of those fights where you're going, man, we're getting into about the 7th, 8th round, and the Aggies haven't gotten anything going. And they just look like, LSU looks like they're on the verge here. And then all of a sudden there's that one punch, which was the interception. And then Marcel Reed comes in, and you go, oh, they're on the ropes. And then comes that other punch, which is the one-play touchdown. Then they get a little standing 8 count. And then the fight had changed from that point on.
Yep.
That was like a one punch, you dazed him, you flurried him, he goes down, the fight's different from that point forward. And I would put that in MMA terms, would take me another 5 minutes, so we're going to stop there. That fight, who?
Taporia this weekend.
Oh, you got to tell me about that. I missed it because I was watching football, American football. So LSU and A&M, it is a home game series, and now it's on A&M to try to break that streak. We're not talking about a couple years now. The last 8 years, the home game has won this series. And I always used to say that about LSU and Bama. You had to make it where the home team would win. And they couldn't ever get it done with Bama with Nick Saban there, and nobody could except Georgia, and they really couldn't either. They keep losing to them. But the first step for A&M, I thought, to ascend in the SEC was to make LSU a home-and-home series. And I said that many times over the years. They've done that. We're there. And 3 of those 4 games A&M's won have come against top 10 LSU teams. So LSU has come into Kyle Field 3 times in the last 4 trips, ranked inside the top 10, and they have lost every time. Texas A&M has been ranked in the top 10 once during that span. I believe they were in 2020. They beat LSU 20-7. So Texas A&M is now at a point as a program, and it's because of this happening, okay? It's because of this happening with talent. They can match LSU physicality every time, every game they come in here. They've done it the last couple times in Baton Rouge, minus 19. They match LSU physically. They match them athletically. They match them with NFL talent. A lot of LSU people were texting me like the Tommy Moffitt, Mike Elko combo is tough to beat, and keyword being tough. They out-physicaled LSU on Saturday night, and that's why they won the football game. And I love it because I respect LSU. I respect those players. Brian Kelly, his resume doesn't need any explanation. It's one of the best in the sport. And they get athletes, they get players, and they have that dog mentality.
Yes, they do.
They always do. And so I love the fact, like, we can say what we want about Jordan Gilbert leaving and maybe chirping too much since he left. I notice I'm not saying that about Walter Nolan or Evan Stewart. They're not talking about A&M. They don't reference A&M much. Caden Davis did. He talked about it and took shots at the culture here and forget if he was right or wrong. It's just you don't do it. And you don't do it and expect Aggies to pull for you. You don't do it and expect A&M fans, I wish them the best, except when they play. I'm not wired like that. I'm sorry. So Jordan Gilbert, you can say what you want, but he's a tough physical football player. And people that don't know that, ask these guys in the locker room. He's a tough physical football player. I think Major Burns is a tough physical football player. I've loved what I see from Whit Weeks. Swinton's a freaking stud. And A&M went out there, and as that game wore on, they physically kicked their ass up and down the field. And they took over the game in both trenches, on both lines of scrimmage, and they whipped them. And that means something.
It does.
Against that program and that football team and that talent.
Do you agree with me? I think LSU is the best team A&M has faced this year, even though they lost to Notre Dame?
I want to say yes. But my instant reaction answer would be to say yes. But I think I haven't watched enough Notre Dame since they've been playing good. I know they're not playing good teams, but they're doing to them what I don't think they could have done earlier in the year. Well, we know that. They lost to Northern Illinois the week after.
2. Yep.
They're beating the crap out of these teams. Like the team they lost to, Northern Illinois, I think Notre Dame would beat them by 3 touchdowns now, at least, what they're doing to other teams. So it's hard for me to answer that like really fairly because I don't think I've watched much of any Notre Dame football with the exception of the second half of that Northern Illinois game since. So they seem to be vastly improved, just like A&M is. But yeah, I wouldn't. I think that LSU might be the best team. I do know they are the most talented team. I mean, dude, you just beat a team and you outscored them 31-6 in not a half. In a quarter and a half of football, you outscored them 31-6. You were sacking the quarterback. You were getting interceptions. You were running the hell out of the football, just running it down their throat. You had them out of sorts, and they got hit. They got hit with a whirlwind, and they had no answer for it. And this, let me tell you about that football team. We talked about the defense just now. A lot of talent. Nussmeier's an NFL draft pick, a high draft pick, probably a first rounder. Eventually. The tight end might be the best in college football in Mason Taylor. I think he's really, really good. 3 catches for 21 yards. Caden Durham could have played anywhere in the country. He couldn't get 20 yards rushing against this defense. Both offensive tackles will be first-round picks. Will Campbell might probably be a top 5 pick. You've got, I think Lacey is a complete stud at receiver, and Anderson was the best one on the field Saturday night. So, I mean, there is a world of talent on that team, and you smack them around down the stretch and beat them by 15 points. Yeah, I think they're better than Notre Dame. If they're not, they're certainly a more talented set of athletes out there and more NFL pieces right now.
Billy, before we hit a break, quarterback situation, there's a lot of different layers to this because you have 2 different types of quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying you have a 2-quarterback system moving forward, but what it does say is when this isn't working, there's a viable option. That all being said, Connor hasn't seemed right this year for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's not, I'm sorry, he played better last year when we saw him. He played his freshman year. This is not, for some reason, something's not right. And I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, and, what's weird is it looked right just a couple games ago. Mm-hmm. It looked so right. And it looked like, okay, this is the fit. This is how this offense opens up. Then Mississippi State, it wasn't so. It was the numbers. There were 2 picks. But if you watch that game, we talked about, like, man, he could have thrown 4. Mm-hmm. He also made some nice plays. He made some really nice plays. So you're like, okay. We all said A&M doesn't win this game if Connor doesn't play well. The difference was Texas A&M had Marcel Reed to go to. LSU had no one else. And it wasn't like you're going to bench Nuss.
Right.
But the A&M quarterback position at the end of the game is why A&M won. It had to do with number 10. The LSU quarterback position was a big part of why they lost. He threw 3 picks. I know. I heard Moscona and T-Bob. I know what you guys are talking about this morning. And Matt, not surprisingly, his whole concept was A&M, LSU gave him the game. That's, to me, completely silly. It's ridiculous. And I think T-Bob said as much. When you get outrushed 242 to 24, and the reason he threw those picks was because of what
Pressure.
Mike Elko and the Aggies did defensively, because of what that D-line did to that vaunted O-line, because they couldn't run the football. And you asked this quarterback to go on the road in that environment and throw it 50 times. And by the way, it wasn't out of reach until, A&M even at 15, it's not out of reach. Right. But 50 passes for him, that tells you that A&M was kicking their ass up front. And the adjustments by Elko and Bateman in the second half. So those interceptions were forced. Was it an ill-advised throw? Sure. But he completed ill-advised passes in the first half. Are we saying that A&M gave LSU the 17-7 lead because Le'Veon Moss fumbled in the first half? I mean, these are mistakes that are forced. Nuss could have thrown that ball away, but he's pressured. He sees a receiver that he thinks that can make a play on the ball. He makes an ill-advised throw. It was ill-advised because of pressure. It was ill-advised. He felt
his body. He was rolling one way.
I mean, it's a bad play.
Yeah.
So I understand you go, well, he didn't have to make that throw, but he's a quarterback that was pressured into making a bad throw. He completed that throw earlier in the game and thought he could do it again. But things had changed on the A&M defense. They adjusted. They made the play. The other interception, he thought he could get it out there. He underestimated B.J. Mays, who made a hell of a play on a football for a pick. These things happen. He didn't see Torian York drop back there because he didn't see him over the line, and he knew that his running back was going to be there. That was a great play by Torian. Great coaching to tell him when that running back leaks out, you go get him. That's not giving anything away. That's A&M. A&M went out and took this game. They took it, they wrestled it right out of LSU's hands, and then they smacked them around down the stretch. No one could watch that game and feel otherwise. You could not watch it and feel otherwise. It's a 60-minute game. LSU outplayed A&M for the first 35, 37 minutes. But what A&M did in that last 23 was complete and total annihilation. Again, they outscored them 31-6 in like 24 minutes of action. About 24 when they started that drive. 23, 24 minutes. They outscored them 31-6. That was not given. You know what? LSU missed 2 field goals and they had a bonehead. Was that the guy? Is the holder the guy that's in the locker room dancing around with Odell Beckham, talking trash on TikTok after they beat Ole Miss? It might be. You let the ball hit you in the face on the snap. Yeah. I get it if you're on that side and you go, man, we gave away 9 points. Look at the stats. Watch how that game went. By the end of the game, Texas A&M was clearly better on both sides of the ball, offense, defense, and yes, special teams. Because I'm going to take Tyler White and what he did by himself versus everything LSU didn't do on special teams. And by the way, if your kicker has missed 2 field goals all year and he comes into Kyle Field and
misses,
score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted to be the dominant physical team, when A&M gets the ball at the 10, at the 20, at the 30, wherever, then hold them to field goal attempts. See if their kicker can, and so A&M held LSU to 3 field goal attempts. They flubbed all 3 of them. 2 of them you're kicking in a hostile environment, and it clearly got to the kicker, Ramos. The other one, they couldn't hear. They were all off. One guy snapped it. The other guy wasn't ready. That's that crowd that your players try to downplay. That's the 12th man. That's Kyle Field. Kyle Field got to him. The A&M defense got to him. The physicality of the A&M ground game got to him. And the zone read, Marcel Reed run game got to him. And they could do nothing to stop it. And if they wanted to stop it, then score touchdowns. If you want to stop it, do what the A&M defense did when they were on the ropes a little bit and bend but don't break. Hold for field goals. Team takes over at the 10-yard line, make them kick it. If you're that good, make them kick it. Don't let them score on one play.
Sorry, you can't be a physical team if you can't run the ball.
Nope.
You can't. It doesn't work that way.
And as the game wears on, and fortunately A&M was able to hang in there. Because like I said, LSU outplayed them in the first half. They absolutely did. And it was like, you're going, man, is this LSU team was what everybody said right?
Right.
Are they about to soar and skyrocket? If they keep playing like this, we've seen Bama. If I was an LSU fan at halftime of that game, I'd be going, man, I think we're going to be playing Georgia for the SEC title. And that's what A&M's got to avoid this week at South Carolina. You got to play 4 quarters. And you don't have to be perfect during those 4. You're not going to be against good football teams. You have to hang in, and especially on the road, like LSU, you have to hang in and win 4 quarters, 60 minutes. Not 38 minutes, 60 minutes.
Moment for Heritage Films. They make documentary films. How cool would it have been for Chance and his team to have been there with your family as you guys took in this awesome game, right? Tailgating before the game, all the purple and yellow that's there, and then surrounded by maroon and white, and your grandkids are there, your whatever your family dynamic might be. Imagine having Chance and his team there telling that story, how you guys all get together for these A&M games, and you're at this historic game and what it could mean for the future, and having Chance document that story. Or maybe you just want to talk about your family's history, right? Chance does documentaries about families, family businesses, and family ranches. And by the way, he's a good old boy who loves A&M football. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com. You can call him up, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. It is Heritage Films. And we are back here on TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy, you alluded to it earlier, but one of the things I wanted to get into here is like, while you have two different types of quarterbacks, and I don't want to call them two different types of running backs, but like,
what, for these two?
Yeah, but Le'Veon and Amari, it's an and. It's not, like they're both, like the game that Amari had, you talked about him running through people. Like, think about it. Your starting running back in Le'Veon has to go out for a little bit because he's not feeling his best.
Mm-hmm.
You don't miss a beat. You gain a beat almost. Like, he was that good.
12 runs, 12 carries for
yards.
91 yards against LSU in that environment, in that game. And yeah, man, Amari Daniels is explosive. And we talked about it this offseason because he was definitely getting secondary billing to Le'Veon, who I believed was in store for an all SEC type of season, and Ruben Owens, who I expected was going to have a breakout sophomore campaign. I think everyone would have agreed with that. But you always try to say, like, Amari Daniels is legit. And by the way, so is EJ Smith. EJ had a nice run called back the other night. And like, if he got opportunities, he is too. But Amari is damn good. And I thought he was last year. I love the way he won me over, the way he ran in that Miami game last year, early in that season, the way he ran in that Miami game to start off, and I was like, damn, is he just that fired up to be playing against Miami or what? But then he comes back and he didn't save the day against Auburn, but his run was the backbreaker, and it was a really nice run. He was like 78 yards in the fourth quarter of a game that mattered in the SEC against athletes on that side. And then he did it again against South Carolina, had a big run in a game that with Rattler was closer than you thought early on. I think South Carolina came down and went ahead, and maybe went ahead again. He had a back-breaking run in that one. So I saw enough to go, man, this dude, he'll get it done. Like I think against Ole Miss when they came back up there in Oxford, it was he and Moss. So you could see it, but I understood why people were excited about Moss and Owens. But Amari, I think when they got here too, I think the coaching staff was like, oh, wow, this dude, like Amari Daniels is one of those guys that I don't think fans really understand. Like, had he left in the portal, I think people wouldn't have gone, oh, man, what a big loss. Because they say, oh, we got Moss and Owens. But Amari Daniels means a lot to this football team and this running game because of his toughness. Obviously, they need the depth. But it's his toughness. When he comes in, and I think both these guys do it. They're different backs, but they are both. They finish runs. They run through tackles. They're physical. They set a tone. They're the type running backs that the big linemen respect and appreciate, the way they run, the way they block. I mean, Amari Daniels and Albert Regis, to me, are the two players, one on each side of the ball, that we don't talk about enough in terms of what they're doing out on the field week to week. Because they're not the star player. Like, we're so focused on Scorton and the Shamars, and rightfully so. And in that backfield, obviously, Moss is putting together an all SEC season.
Yeah.
I wish, again, the 70 yards last week, I wish he would have had. I don't know why. Maybe by the end of the year I won't be harping on that, but I just think he's having an all SEC type of season. There's not a game that goes by that you don't go, okay, this guy could go for 108, he'd go for 128. He can go for 86, and it's going to be an important 86. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a wear down the defense 86. And by the way, if he goes for 86, it might be Amari Daniels going for 74. And, that 1-2 punch is really, really good.
Yep. All right, let's hit a break. When we come back, we've probably got to get into some commits. I got some other SEC storylines to get into. Right now, we're talking about Southwood Valley Animal Hospital in College Station. Dr. Justin Casares and Dr. Lauren Casares took over ownership in 2022. If you have any pet, right, let them take care of you. They specialize on this. This is an Aggie-owned and operated place that's been serving the Brazos Valley for 30 years. And they really want to take care of this community with routine veterinary services, wellness visits, sick emergency visits, surgical care. They provide advanced medical care at very affordable prices. But here are the facts. They're elevating medicine right here in the Brazos Valley, and they take care of this community so well. If you're a TexAgs listener, they want to take care of you. If you are a student, they want to take care of you. The TexAgs 12 discount, tell the receptionist when you're there that you're a TexAgs listener. They're going to take off $12 off your first visit for being a new client. And if you're a student, they're always hooking up the students. Tell them you're a student there as well. The phone number is 979-693-9898. That number again, 979-693-9898. Or go to their website, southwoodvalleyvet.com. Again, that website, southwoodvalleyvet.com. Welcome back into the program. We call it TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We've got a bunch of commits on Sunday, a three-pack. We've got Samu Moala from the, is that Lusenberg, California? I guess it is, Lawndale, California. We also have from Douglas County, the defensive end Jordan Carter, and of course the wide receiver also from Douglas County, Aaron Gregory. A great weekend, and Kyle Field, electric on Saturday, I'm sure has ripple of effects, and we saw 3 different 26s come in, Billy.
Well, I mean, look, they're not just 3 different 26s. I mean, those are some big time
legit
commitments,
guys.
And what they're doing in the class of 26. As you can see it up there right now, what's that total we're looking at? You got 7 commitments now, so you almost doubled it. That's a lot of commits for a 2027 class, and they're not done. They're going to add to that, I think, in fairly short order, but let's just focus on what they've done. Okay, and people keep asking me, by the way, about the 2025 class. Man, there's not a lot left there to do. Really, you're going to see A&M try to go best available at certain positions. I know everybody's looking at, a couple of the edge rushers that A&M's still pursuing there. One was in this weekend from Florida. That's a nationally ranked guy. Then you've got the guy down at Mady Creek in Houston, Toby Hastrup, who it really seems to fit what Elko and the Aggies are looking to do. So you're looking there. Obviously, Lamont Rogers is on flip watch and has been for a while from Missouri. The Tigers are fighting like hell to keep him. But there's not a whole lot you're going to see them do outside of best available down the stretch run here in terms of that class. You're going to see a lot more, I think, once they see what happens after the season in terms of the roster with the portal. There's already going to be some obvious needs, and then you see who you keep. This is college football 2024. But the way the 26 class is going, now you're starting to see like what these guys, these particular coaches can do as recruiters, what Mike Elko can do. But even now, more specifically, it's like now it's a whole nother level when you win games like Missouri and LSU at home. When you reemerge, not because they've never been there under Elko yet. When you crack the top 10. When you're an SEC title and playoff contender, when you're playing a game now for the 3rd time in 4 weeks and the 4th time in 9 games this year, when you play South Carolina and it's the biggest game of the week in the SEC, that spotlight. But more importantly, the more you win spotlight games, the more spotlight games you play in, the more you win them at home, the more you reap the recruiting rewards. And that's what you're seeing right now. So they went out west. They're doing a great job in California, an incredible job. And what better time to do it? Because I feel like you're primarily going to be fighting a USC team that's not doing crap and Lincoln Riley, who's under fire. And you're going to be obviously challenging Oregon, who's red hot right now. But that out west, like that's about it. These players are going to be looking at SC and Oregon in terms of if you're an SEC team that's waving a big stick. That's what A&M's doing right now. They've done a remarkable job in California. We could do a whole segment on that later. You can win championships with several guys from that state on this roster because they produce them. They go to the NFL. They star all around the country lately. They used to stick out west. That's no longer the case. So in Moala, that you watch him, and it's another fast, physical linebacker. And I love what Elko and Jay Bateman are doing at that position in the 25 class. Oh, boy. I go down and talk about those guys all day. And then Damian Sanford being a young, really talented linebacker, and then moving forward into now the 26 class. In another state you love, and I've always said you also have to recruit the footprint. You will not win an SEC or national title if you are not recruiting the SEC footprint. I mean, look at this football team right now. We were talking about Amari Daniels. There's Shamar Stewart. There's Le'Veon Moss. Like you've got to recruit this part of the country that you're playing in every week to win at the level at the required level. You just do. And that's exactly what A&M's doing now. And to go into Georgia and the greater, I believe, Douglasville's greater Atlanta area, right? It is. To go in there into that part of the country and get players of the caliber of Aaron Gregory and Jordan Carter. I mean, Jordan Carter, both of them are like Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia. And to go in there and commit these guys, Jordan Carter is a top 10 player in the country right now. I believe it's per Rivals, like overall, regardless of position. Right. That is as big time and early commitment as you're going to get, as anyone's going to get in the country. So he is a game-changing, difference-making type edge player from deep in the heart of SEC country. And again, like other teams in the top 10, 3 other teams in the top 10 actually, he could have chosen to commit to. He chose to commit to Texas A&M. And again, and you go out and get Aaron Gregory, it's the same thing. You look at his offer list and you look at his highlight tape and you go, okay, there's Holman Wiggins. Like I said all year to everyone that wants to listen, like, let this guy recruit. He came in very late in the portal. He jumped in here after Bama's playoff run last year. Let this guy recruit. Okay, now he'll have a whole year of portal. So watch what he does there. And now this 26 class is the first class where it's like he's on even footing with the rest. And now and you're starting to see it with these wide receiver commits.
You want to go around the SEC, talk about some of the games from the weekend? Because there's some big ones coming up this weekend as well. But just SEC-wise, let's start off with Vandy having a chance there down the stretch. Diego Pavia doing great things, even though he had some struggles early on in that one. Texas's offensive line is getting beat up, man.
Are they?
Well, they're getting beat.
I didn't know physically.
Sorry.
I watched some of that first half without volume before heading over, and I watched last night the entire second half of that thing. And listen, if you're Vandy today or yesterday, you got to be really kicking yourself. That was a winnable game for Vandy. And just being real honest, here's what I think happened to Texas. Whatever aura of invincibility they thought they were operating under, that most of us tried to say was false, I still think they're really good. It's to win at Vandy 27-24 in the past was like, God, if you'd have been playing anyone else that day, you'd have lost. It's not the case this year. Mm-hmm. With Pavia, Stowers had a late touchdown. He's so good. He's just in the second half alone, fourth quarter, he's making tough catches. He looks so big and physical. Like they're doing good things in that weight room over there as well. But I think what happened to Texas is whatever aura of invincibility they were walking around with was stripped away, which is probably a good thing for them down the stretch. I think, though, there's also a reality to that they're not at a next level above. Mm-hmm. I don't think I was wrong when I said replacing Whittington, Worthy, and A.D. Mitchell was going to be tough. I think they've adequately placed Jatavian Sanders, maybe even then some. I really like Gunnar Helm as a tight end, but I think those receivers are really good. But the guys that left, 2 of them were first rounders. Whittington's on an NFL roster. Like I think Wingo ultimately could be a first rounder, but I mean, who else is first rounder out of that group? And especially Bond's been banged up. He hasn't had that kind of year. Texas, to me, and they had so many injuries at running back, and that's credit their depth to even be able to withstand it with Blue. But when I look at them right now, I think what we saw this week is what I've been trying to say, and people discount it, they downplay it. I think if you ask anybody in that building and they're being honest, and maybe Sark will acknowledge this week when they're talking to him, but I think I'll credit them for going on the road and winning that game because I think I think Georgia physically beat them up, and I think mentally they beat them up a little bit too. And that's what happens in this conference. Like LSU is going to have to deal with that for 2 weeks now. The physicality of these games, week in and week out, it's a different level than the Big 12. And I remember when the Big 12 was that level.
Yeah.
Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Big 12 was that level. The black shirts in Colorado and Bill Snyder, Pete, Kansas State, and Mac Brown in Texas, and R.C. Slocum and the Wrecking Crew, and Texas Tech was way up higher than they've ever been. That was without OU being any good. And then Bob Stoops came in, and you had Bob Stoops and OU, and that was when A&M started to do this. So, like, that league was what the SEC is now. Those days are long since past. And they were long since past for the last few years, last decade plus, that OU and Texas have been playing there. You get beat up in this conference, physically, mentally, and I think Georgia did that to Texas a week ago, and you saw that hangover from it. And Fandy made a lot of mistakes that they shouldn't have, or they might have lost that football game. So I think if I'm a Texas fan, you actually should come home from Nashville feeling good that you got out of there and survived it. But they've got to kind of regroup and get ready for Florida, a Florida team that's coming in, I believe, coming off a bye, right, and playing really good football.
But that's in 2 weeks?
Is that Texas is bye this week?
I think Texas is on a bye this week. I'm not sure that's correct.
So Florida's got Georgia this weekend. So, yeah, maybe Texas will be catching Florida at a good time because Georgia might do it to them. You know, so it is, you get that, and it is about surviving. So credit Texas for surviving. If you're a Longhorn fan listening, I don't think you have any reason to go, oh, we barely beat Vandy and we didn't play very good. And Ewers threw two picks, even though he was red hot in that first half. Yep. But that was a dicey game there. Dicey game. And they had a big third down conversion, or they're kicking a longer field goal to go up 27-24. Then who knows what happens. Vandy's the type of team that would go for two at the end with Pavia. So I would be pleased that you got out of there with a win. I wouldn't be ashamed of that one at all. But I would say also, now maybe you get a little bit better understanding of what I've been talking about this conference, how it just, I'm telling you, it beats you up. If LSU had to play a game this weekend, they could be, I would be like, okay, man, if they had to play and go on the road, they'd be the team on upset alert. And they might have a 2-game losing streak that derails your season. It happens.
And that Alabama game is this weekend, right? Or is that next week?
No, it's next.
Next weekend, okay. Oh, that's
LSU's got the bye. LSU's got to go into the bye following a loss, which is never a place, it's always a tough place to be.
Moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. They have a good selection of commercial vehicles with service body trucks, flatbed trucks, several medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. They are locally owned and operated, Aggie alumni operated, complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. And this is a note that I found out a couple months ago. This is cool. Free oil changes for life on the life of your purchase, as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They want to take great care of you. They have a committed sales staff that finds you the best pricing, the best value, and of course that they're going to get you a great trade-in value when you go in there to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. And we're not talking about a far drive. The edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell, we're talking about a 15-minute drive, short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. Hey there. We're back on TexAgs Live. He said we're back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's Billy Liucci. I'm David Nuño, and it's the final segment of the program.
Did you say I'm David Nuño?
Because I was trying to figure out if we said anything we shouldn't say on the air, but no, nothing bad said.
Oh, no, well, I'm just telling a story about a road rage incident.
Well, I see you get to be more like me, a little peaceful, especially when I drive. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, you're just total Zen master over here. I'm confusing you with Phil Jackson.
Well, just relax, like Zen during our breaks. We go to the angry elephant, which
I didn't say I road rage.
I didn't say you did.
Might have
the people around you. The happy elephant, I should say, Jackson Oxney. Hello, sir.
Hello.
You got some messages for us.
I do. I have a couple questions for you guys. The first one is from Coach Mike. He's asking you guys, when was the last time a first-place SEC team was ranked as low as 10th in November?
Great question. That's a good question, a good point. Did you pull up the rankings, Yoda?
I can pull up. Which you want the coaches' rankings or you want the AP rankings? What do you want?
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm going to look at these rankings.
I have the AP poll right here.
Well, I'm going to tell you where I think the Aggies should be. Give me the teams directly in front of the Aggies.
Go ahead.
Starting with 9.
BYU at 9.
I think Texas A&M should be ranked ahead of BYU. I would ask you what's BYU's list. Let's see their list of impressive wins. Okay, so they're out. Who else?
Notre Dame at 8.
Look, I'll leave Notre Dame ahead of A&M. I do think A&M's played a much tougher schedule, but Notre Dame came in here and beat the Aggies, so I think the time the Aggies should jump Notre Dame would be if they played for an SEC title and were undefeated, or undefeated in the conference and played for a title, like one loss.
Yeah,
I'd put them ahead until Notre Dame loses another game.
Tennessee at 7.
We could go on. I don't want to waste time. I absolutely think A&M should be ranked higher than Tennessee. I think if you look at both resumes, it's close. Not really complaining there. I think A&M should be ranked ahead of Tennessee. Tennessee barely beat the team at home that A&M beat the crap out of on the road. They were fortunate to get that win. Their best win is Bama. A&M's best win is LSU. We can revisit that in a couple weeks. And I think that, if you look at the losses, A&M lost to a Notre Dame team ranked in the top 10. Tennessee lost to Arkansas, a team that A&M beat.
What else? Yeah, and I have a good question from that Aggie
who's up above Tennessee?
Texas.
Yeah, Texas at
5. Okay, I'm okay. If you want to put Texas ahead of A&M,
6?
I think Texas is where they should be, actually, based on what I'm seeing. Put them 5 or 6.
And then I have a question from someone from the YouTube chat. That Aggie kid, would Georgia be in over us for the SEC championship if we were to be 10-2 to Georgia's 11-1 if we ended up losing to Texas, hypothetically?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of you guys might know that better than me. Like I said, I'm not going to really dive into this 3-way tie scenario. I said I wouldn't dive into the A&M reaching the SEC championship game or potentially setting up, running the table in the conference and setting up the showdown with Texas until they beat LSU. I'm not going to really dive into these tiebreakers and stuff until if the Aggies go into Colombia and beat South Carolina. I think then it's time to really start to visit that, because at that point, win or lose against Auburn, there will be an SEC title and playoff implications when the Aggies play the Longhorns regardless. So if they win Saturday, then I think it's time to start looking at tie breaks.
Billy, thank you very much. That's going to do it for TexAgs Live. We'll see you mañana.